There we go. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone in attendance this evening and everyone's work in preparation for today's hearing. This is the 2020 Neighborhood Operating Budget public hearing this evening. The Department of Neighborhoods Director Carla Williams Scott is here, along with representatives from her team. I want to thank my colleagues on council, the staff, CTV, and members of the public for taking time to come down to City Hall this evening, or for streaming this hearing online to learn more about this budgetary process and specifically the budgetary process for the Department of Neighborhoods. Want to remind members of the public, if they wish to speak and ask questions this evening of the department, to please fill out a speaker slip before the public testimony portion of this hearing. If any members of the public need those, they can certainly get them from staff or in the back of the hearing room. The purpose of the hearing tonight is to review and comment on the proposed 2020 operating budget for the Department of Neighborhoods, as well as review some of their key initiatives for the upcoming year. This hearing is available to live stream on CTV website, and also it's broadcast on Spectrum Channel 1024, WOW Channel 3, and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. A video of tonight's hearing will also be posted on the City of Columbus YouTube channel following the event. With that, I'd like to turn it over to the Director, Carla Williams Scott, for her presentation this evening. Thank you all for being here.
Good morning, good afternoon, Chairman Dorns and members of council. I'm Carla Williams Scott, Director of the Department of Neighborhoods, and joining me for our hearing this evening are Deputy Director Todd Diefendorfer, Assistant Director and Fiscal Officer Julia Carter, and Chris Sewell, my brother's keeper program manager. The Department of Neighborhoods serves as the front door to city government for our residents. In 2019, the 47 members of my team worked to maximize our $5.3 million budget to deliver on Mayor Ginther's commitment to our neighborhoods and to help build a stronger and more equitable community. We are excited for the future, and I'm pleased to share with you the highlights of our 2020 budget. Our 2020 budget of just over $6 million will include 48 full-time and 2 part-time employees. We will expand the team with 2 new customer service representatives in the 311 Customer Service Call Center. These new staff will help ensure our continued ability to provide excellent customer service to every resident in our city. The demand from residents for assistance from 311 remains high. Already this year, we have exceeded a new record with nearly 490,000 customer contacts. This exceeds the total number of contacts received for all of 2018 by over 55,000, and the year is still going. A new office assistant 3 will join the team. This individual will provide administrative support and serve as our receptionist when the department moves to our new facility at 1410 Cleveland Avenue later in 2020. Funding will continue for our neighborhood and community planning program. This was added in 2019 to focus on issues including housing, education, workforce, safety, and health in each of our opportunity neighborhoods. Advancing the Linden and Hilltop plans is a priority in 2020, and this funding includes implementation of projects that were identified by the community during the planning process, as well as community remediation services. The Neighborhood Crisis Response Program, a part of Mayor Ginther's comprehensive neighborhood safety strategy, is also building momentum. Informed by neighborhood safety committees and the community data, investments will be made in the social determinants of safety through dedicated funding and cross-agency partnerships. We will continue to support the growing New American community in Columbus. This work will include providing translation and interpretation services and offering the New American Leadership Academy. Councilmember Dorns, we appreciate you for taking time to join us last night at the New American Leadership Academy's closing ceremony. With the completion of the fall cohort, there are now nearly 60 graduates of the program. These graduates represent nearly 30 different nationalities. In 2020, the New American Leadership Academy will provide leadership development training to increase civic engagement. Building on lessons learned and input from participants in our 3 previous sessions, we plan to welcome a new group with an extended and more in-depth learning experience. The important work to reduce disparities facing boys and young men of color will continue through My Brother's Keeper. We are excited about the creation of a statewide MBK network led by our colleagues at the Kirwan Institute. This work will accelerate work in partnership with the Obama Foundation and MBK Ohio. Earlier this fall, the Department of Neighborhoods, in partnership with Franklin County Department of Job and Family Services, hosted the My Brother's Keeper Youth Conference with the theme, "It's a Different World, Envision Your Future." This free conference was open to young men of color ages 14 to 21. It also featured, for the first time, a separate educational track for parents and guardians, as well as service providers. We also appreciate Council President Hardin for joining us earlier today to announce the 3 organizations that were awarded the MBK grants in the second grant round. Those organizations were the African American Male Wellness Walk Initiative, Community Refugee and Immigration Services, and the Columbus Urban League. These organizations will be tremendous partners moving forward in the work to improve educational outcomes for boys and young men of color in the area of high school success. We also appreciate the partnership with Council President Hardin to launch the beta program for our MBK participants. The first beta class provided the opportunity for 9 young men to explore STEM careers and learn the steps that they need to take to start a business of their own. With the first cohort graduating later this month, we look forward to expanding the program to reach even more young people next year. In addition to these efforts, My Brother's Keeper will implement a new system-level framework to build collective impact that will address policies, programming, and funding. Since becoming a department, our neighborhood services team has worked with residents to form 3 new area commissions: the Far West, West Scioto, and this year, the Mideast Area Commission, also known as the MAC. Over the past year, our neighborhood liaisons have provided technical assistance and guidance to our existing area commissions to identify opportunities to assist them in their work of building community, advocating for their neighborhoods, and communicating city policies and procedures. In 2020, this team will provide the annual training series for all area commissioners, as well as provide assistance with developing websites, working on issues recommended best practices, bylaws, and completing the code change. This will allow us the opportunity to enhance area commission meeting management, improve communication, and boost awareness and ensure that each commission will is easily accessible to all residents, neighborhood groups, businesses, and property owners. We look forward to continuing the dialogue with area commission members. This Saturday, December 14th, we will host the final training and summit of 2019. This will be an opportunity to begin identifying those commissions that would like to work with the city to pilot the recommended best practices. Our 2020 budget will also support these activities as well as provide additional allocation for 21 area commissions. Finally, in 2020, the Columbus Neighborhood and Community Grants Program, the Martin Luther King Program in March, and Black History Month program will also continue. Thank you again for this opportunity to provide you with an overview of the budget for the Department of Neighborhoods, and we would be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Director William Scott. I appreciate you all being here and certainly going through the amount of work that the department has had over the past year, and certainly what's in front of us for 2020. So thank you for taking the time to do that. Just have a few questions this evening, and I think a lot of the questions you've went over in your previous comments, but always like to make sure that we have the opportunity to succinctly highlight some things that's within the budget and certainly some things that are going on with the department. Can the department go over the procedure for area commissions to change their bylaws in light of the past changes to Columbus City Code 30109 that occurred last week?
Absolutely. Currently, each area commission has language in their bylaws that directs how they will make changes and how those changes are adopted. We will continue to work with them, providing technical assistance to update or amend their bylaws as needed. Beginning this Saturday at the final training, will walk through the best practices and then begin to kind of get a sense of those area commissions that want to be involved in adopting the best practices during 2020. And then the neighborhood liaisons will continue to provide technical support to those area commissions throughout the year and help them to work through that process.
I can tell you, I was at an area commission a few evenings ago, and they were already talking about ways that they want to sit down and certainly work with the department about identifying areas of best practices that they think would be a good fit for their commission. So I'm encouraged to see that at least we've got some commissions who are already looking at making those changes now. So
Absolutely.
I think we'll see some movement in 2020 about folks taking up that work to make sure that our area commissions are as well functioning as they possibly can to make sure that they're good, strong voices for the city. Speaking of area commissions, looking at the 2020 budget for the department, what, if any, additional funding has been identified for area commissions moving into the next year?
So in 2020, we haven't included additional funding for operations of the current 21 area commissions, but we have allocated funding for the addition to provide operating support should new area commissions come on board. So that's the first thing. In addition to that, we have funding available we'll continue to provide the training, area commission series training, and then funding to work with each of the area commissions that want to develop a website and kind of get whatever training they need on board. So currently, we do have that in our budget. It includes website development and website training for the particular area commission members that will be monitoring or kind of staffing their websites.
Yeah, one thing I want to highlight is I think the department this past year helped to streamline the process to make sure that area commissions are getting access to the funding that's been provided them already, and I think that's an important thing to highlight that in prior years that was some difficulty for them to be able to access those funds when they felt like they needed to, and that's something the department's worked very hard to make sure that moving forward that's much more seamless for folks to be able to utilize. So certainly when we talk about funding for the commissions, I think that's something that's important for us to highlight as something that the city's worked hard on to make sure that that the funding that is available for folks that that's an important thing for us to make sure they can have access to.
Absolutely. I'm working with them on setting up electronic funds transfers, setting up their accounts, and then making it an easy transition when individuals on the area commission would change positions, so that they could easily make that change as well and continue to operate and access their funding.
Yeah, I think that's been good work that I think will improve the the ability for the area commissions to utilize those funds moving forward. Wanted to know if the department could discuss the Columbus Neighborhood Community Grant program, and if there's any changes from that program from last year moving into this year.
Yeah, so this year in 2019, the grant program was used primarily to support community organizations and National Night Out. And so we supported about 35 organizations with just a little under $7,000. And each organization could apply for a grant of up to $200 to support their National Night Out efforts. We want to continue that this year, but also take some of the funding and set it aside to do a small grant process to help some of our grassroots organizations to build capacity. Oftentimes, smaller organizations have trouble getting funding from larger granting institutions because they just don't have the history. And so we want to work with them to help them build capacity so that they're able to do that.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier this being a record-setting year for 311, and I think that's both that's good news for the citizens being able to have access to the city to make sure that whether it's a pothole or whether it's legal dumping that's occurred in the neighborhood. I think that's a positive because I think folks around the city know how important that is, but as we have more residents accessing that tool, that obviously creates challenges for the department to make sure that we're being responsive to those requests to make sure that folks are being heard and we're getting those things to the right place. One of the things that you've identified in your presentation was additional funding to bring on additional staff for 311. And I want to know, from your vantage point, how that's going to improve, sort of the 311 process for folks.
Absolutely. We currently have 17 customer service reps that are working either online, web, and answering the phones. With the addition of 2 additional customer service reps, that will allow us, one, to reduce the wait time for folks that are in the queue that are waiting to get through to 311, and then it will allow us to kind of adjust our staffing during peak times. Peak times include kind of toward the end of the day, as a lot of times when people are getting off work and they come home and they want to report at 311. Other peak times are the day after a holiday or a long weekend, and so that having that additional...
Ohio State football game.
Ohio State football game, absolutely. So having additional staff will allow us to make those adjustments, those staffing adjustments during peak time. One of the other things that we implemented this year to assist residents so they don't have to wait in the queue is the callback feature. So if you call 311 and you're in the queue on hold to get to an operator, you now have the ability to follow the prompt, and if you want to call back, then you don't have to stay holding on the line. Then someone will call you back once the first operator that frees up as you're in the queue. And I think that's helpful to people. If a lot of times if people are calling and they're at work and they're on their break and they really don't have time to sit and hold, then we can, call them back and work through whatever issues they wanted to report.
Thank you, Director. I realize we've spent the last few minutes talking about 311, and I'm sure there's some folks watching at home that maybe don't know what 311 is. Would someone from the department mind just taking maybe 90 seconds and telling folks what 311 is and how they can get access to it?
Sure. Thank you for that question. And I know when you're out at community groups, you're lifting up the work of 311, so we definitely appreciate the advocacy. And on our website, we just launched a new video, so there's a video out there as well at columbus.gov/neighborhoods where you can hear from our customer service center manager talking about the work. But in a nutshell, it is a front door to the city government. It's a place where you can call in, you can go online, submit a service request, you can use the My Columbus app, you can also send us an email, 311@columbus.gov, and you can raise issues if there's an issue of high grass, there's a pothole, if you have a question or a comment about a city service, that's your place to submit that. And the 311 team goes through those, routes them to the correct departments, and for them to take action and address those issues. You can follow up. You'll get a service request number, so you can follow up and you can see the progress of your report and what's going on with it. So definitely encourage more people. I know we setting a record this year, and hope to see some more growth next year. So
absolutely. Thank you, Deputy Director. And one of the things I want to highlight as well, and I think the Director briefly mentioned this in her comments about, I think the department and the city itself is very excited about improvements being made to the actual online system for 311 moving forward this year. And I think that's going to be something that normal users of the system are going to recognize as a big benefit. And I think we'll have an opportunity to bring more folks as regular users. I didn't know if the department wanted to make some comments about sort of the improvements that we're likely to see moving forward this year.
So yeah, we're excited right now. We're going to finish in our due diligence there, working with our partners in the technology department, really looking for the new system to provide a better customer experience, help improve internal workflows, and then also allow us to better use data for decision making and allocating resources. Very excited that the potential for this new system to provide a better web experience for residents. I mean, looking at the numbers right now, over of those 400, almost 500,000 requests that come in, 100,000 are coming in online. So we want to improve that experience for people. Also looking to do things so when people are putting those requests in, they can better locate where the issue is, which will save time for city staff in terms of being able to go out and effectively service that location.
Thank you. That's the only question I have for the department this evening. This is where we would turn to the public testimony portion of our hearing. At this point, we have not had any speaker slips filled out by members of the public to ask questions of the Department of Neighborhoods for their proposed 2020 budget. So with that, I will move to close the hearing unless the department has any comments they'd like to make at this point.
Councilmember, I'd just like to thank council for their partnership in working with us, both on the area commission work and with DOT and through 311. We appreciate the support.
Thank you. This time, I just want to thank everyone for making the time to be here this evening, and for those watching at home to be a part of this public hearing. Obviously, looking at what the city spends hard-earned tax dollars on for the important programs of the Department of Neighborhoods and other parts of the city, I think it's important for folks to be well-informed about what's going on with their city government. Obviously, I want to thank the Department of Neighborhoods for being here, Director William Scott, for your presentation, members of her leadership team and staff, Todd Diefendorfer, Julia Carter, and Chris Sewell, thank you for being here this evening. I want to thank my staff, Hannah Miller and Kevin McCain, for helping to set up this hearing, and Chris Maitland from our Legislative Research Office to work with the department on an ongoing basis to have a good relationship between the Department of Council to make sure that we're supporting the department's efforts as best that we can, and certainly making sure that we're working with the public to make sure that what folks want to see in their neighborhoods are sort of coming through the department as well. So I want to say that thanks to CTV for their work to make sure that this presentation is accessible for folks at home. Thank you again, Director William Scott, for your presentation. I think that was a great analysis of where the department has been financially, where it's going, and certainly the programs that we hope to see implemented here in 2020 and into the future. If folks are looking for more information in general about the Department of Neighborhoods, I encourage them to go to columbus.gov/neighborhoods or to call 614-645-1993. If you're looking for more information about the overall proposed 2020 operating budget for the city of Columbus, you can find that at columbus.gov/finance. Whether members of the public have questions about the Department of Neighborhoods budget or any other department's budget, they are welcome to contact my office. I can be reached at 614-645-8201. Members of the public are also welcome to email me at radorns, D-O-R-A-N-S, @columbus.gov. Appreciate everyone being here this evening and sharing the information. So thank you with that. This hearing is adjourned.